Hey, welcome to this video. I'm just shooting it because I've come across a nice technique that I've found on my path towards enlightenment, and if you're on the same journey then you might find this beneficial. So I thought I'd just outline it here quickly for you, and what I'll do is go through a few concepts on the whiteboard here, so we've both got a framework to understand the different concepts that I'm referring to, so that we can understand the process that I'll outline, and understand its simple power as well, and how to actually practice it once we have these concepts locked in. So first of all, what we've got up here at the top of the whiteboard is this term called Setchi and Under. So through the ages, different mystics and enlightened beings who have got to the ultimate state, so to speak, have described it in various ways, such as spirit or nirvana or self-realization or enlightenment. But the one that I like the best is a Hindu term called Setchi and Under, simply because it's a descriptive word of what the state's actually like. So like water, it can be cold, it can be wet, it can be clear. So these are all describing words that actually just describe the one state of water though. So it's much the same as this self-realization that as we break down this word, we'll see that it is very descriptive of what it would be like to be in that state. Now if you have had taste of this, or you're in that state now, then you'll have a direct understanding of this. If not, then these are just concepts and they're just pointers, because this state is beyond concepts, beyond the mind. Then we can never actually experience it while we're in the mind. But it is to be aware that there is something beyond the mind. So Sat means that it's a beingness, there's a reality. Chit means that it's conscious, so it's aware of itself as that reality. And there's Ananda, so it's a very blissful experience, and it's blissful for three reasons. And that's firstly because it's eternal, secondly because it is self-sustaining, and thirdly is because it's unchanging. So in that state, it's an all-encompassing feeling of bliss, knowing that it's directly perceived and that there's no threat to it because there is nothing else, and that it is not like when we're down in a dream that we need something outside of ourselves to keep giving us that sense of freedom and bliss, that it is completely self-sustaining. So we could describe that state also as being the awake state. So that's the state that, because it's eternal, we're all already in anyway. However, if we're not experiencing ourselves as that, then it's just because we've got some veils over that of our awareness, and as these veils get layered on top of that state, this dream starts to form, in which we find ourselves down as a body in time and space. So what I've got here is a little blue dot, and the blue dot can just mean our identity depending on what level we are in this diagram. So at the top we know ourselves as that and only that, and that's the only thing that's accorded reality. However, outside of that, what we have to end up being then is a body down in time and space, and that's a world of name and form. So the name of the game there is to do all these different things to try to get pleasure and avoid pain. So it's could be seen as being like an actor on a stage, like Shakespeare described. But the problem there is that we're doing all these different things as the doer, as the actor, and we're going round and round and round, but we're never actually getting a sense of true lasting fulfillment or contentment, or that certainty of being, that certainty. So when we're here, we perceive this world and all these different things happening outside of ourselves, but our only concern is with our body identity, and that's what all our energies and time is funneled into, to try to make that secure. But as we all know, that we never can, so it's a losing game. And then at some stage, if this awareness comes into the mind, then it can precipitate a very dark night of the soul, because it can awaken the dreamer, as we'll talk about, to the fact that this is something that I can't win at, and it all comes to naught anyway. So it's much like the Seinfeld show. It's, a show about nothing. We make a big deal of it. We talk about it. We do all these different things. But at the end, it's kind of like a ring-a-ring-a-rosy, and we all fall down, and everyone scratches their head and goes, what was that about? Even though we're trying to make so much meaning of it while it appears to be happening. So there's, in the 20th century, there was an enlightened Indian sage, one of the greatest of the 20th century, named Sri Ramana Maharishi. And he was 16 when he had a direct waking up from the dream, so to speak, that he went beyond into the Setchi and Underness, and for the rest of his life, for over 50 years, he stayed in that state, and it didn't matter if he was awake in his waking dream down here or in his sleeping dream, or he had no dreams and he was in deep state of sleep. He always was identified only as Setchi and Under, and that's all he ever identified himself as, dismissing all this other stuff as simply a dream. I understand that this is obviously for a Western mind like mine, 15 years ago, this was a million miles away, this whole concept, because my experience completely refuted the stuff that I'm actually saying now. So if you're having the same kind of thoughts, that's completely understandable. So, but what he recognized is that when we're down to here as the body, we have all these concepts about who we are, such as I am a man, I am 34, but the primordial one is that I am a body. So this is how the I thought shields itself, its illusionary nature, by identifying with a form. And the form that it identifies with is a body. So what Sri Ramana directly realized is that we are all these different concepts around this I thought. But the thing is, we just accept the I thought as being real, and therefore we never then investigate who is the I that is saying all of these things, such as I am a man, I am 34, I am a body. So he realized that that I is just given a sense of reality from the get-go, and then it is kind of repressed into the unconscious, accepted as true, and then the whole game is just trying to go about trying to find some way of finding happiness through arranging all the different concepts around that I, which, as we said, it all leads to nothing, because this whole kind of dream is based on the complete opposite of what's happening up here. So instead of being eternal, everything passes away. Instead of being unchanging, everything changes. And instead of being self-sustaining, everything is needed outside of oneself to make for survival. So the fastest way to get back to the state of dreaming, and we have to remember that the awakening process is in two stages. First of all, before we can go beyond the dreaming state, we have to be aware that we're actually dreaming. We have to get back to the state of being the dreamer. And once we do that, and we can see our dream as simply that, a dream, then we're willing to wake up, because otherwise we'd think that we're actually asked to be sacrificing all of these things down here. But once their illusionary nature is understood, then and we have tastes of what it's like to be beyond the last veil, then the dreamer is more willing to actually wake up. So the fastest way to get the dreamer from being down here identified with the I thought that then throws it out into the body is through a series of questions. And the question that Sri Ramana advised is to question, who is the I? So an example is probably going to make this more clear. So at the moment, I am presenting this video. So the I am presenting this video, we have to first identify that I. We have to strip it back from the one who's presenting the video to the direct I. So the first question is, who is presenting the video? And the mind will pop up with I am. So the ego, you could also think of that as the ego, and that is the thinker of our thoughts. So once we've identified the I, independent of the one who's presenting the video, we then have awoken this dreaming aspect of ourselves. And the dreamer I would characterize as being this conscious awareness, that it's aware and it is an observer. So that has turned on the dreaming aspect of ourselves, And now the dreamer asks, who is this I? Who am I? Identify yourself, essentially. And so this dreamer starts looking for the I. But as I mentioned, we're not looking for an intellectual answer. We're looking to hold on to this as a reality. And the issue is, for the I thought, is when the dreamer starts looking for the I, it just vanishes because it is essentially illusionary. So if that collapses, then what we're left with is just this awareness of being aware. And that is what I characterize as being in the dreaming state. This awareness that you exist, but you're not reliant on thought, and therefore you're not reliant on the world of name and form. So if you can have a direct realization of that, then you recognize that you are beyond all of this. And once you get that state, the idea then is to try to hold on to it for as long as possible. And that could also be characterized as a very peaceful state, because our peace is always lacking because of our thoughts. And because at the dreaming, once we recognize we're the dreamer, we're actually very close to our Setchi and Underness, our essential being. So if we can hold on to that state of that just conscious awareness, it will then activate the thing that is beyond the last veil to start coming down, acting on the dreamer and helping it undo all the different knots and kinks in its psyche through the practice of the self-enquiry. So the next question you may have in your mind is, that all sounds good, but how do we attribute all of the world of name and form along with all these actions that all these bodies are doing? How is that taking place? So what we could say is that everything outside the dreamer, there is a force. It's a modification on this Setchi and Underness. It's an energy. It's a kind of collective consciousness. It's this one consciousness, which could be called Maya. So it's this one force that is doing everything. Now, granted, if we are down here in the world of name and form, then this is a very cruel consciousness, because we don't have to be rocket science to understand the name of the game here and how awful it actually is and how much conflict there is in this system, which is simply to keep out of awareness, the dreamer out of the awareness. It's been put to sleep by this consciousness, and the issue for this consciousness is if the dreamer actually wakes up to who it is, that is beyond the consciousness, then it can bring it to an end. So therefore, the levels of intricacies and complexities down here in Maya's dream, that she never wants the dreamer to wake up, simply because her reality is then reliant on the dreamer accepting it as his reality. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an introduction to that process, and that's all it's meant to be. But if you wanted to learn more about it, then there is this nice little PDF, or you can get it as a PDF online, called Who Am I? And that was Sri Ramana's teachings in 28 questions. So he basically outlines everything you'd even need to know about this stuff that I've just gone through. And by this video, I think that'll make it very clear, the stuff that he talks about in there in a question and answer format. Like me, I was completely lost in this, in Maya's dream, so to speak, completely identified with the I thought, never ever questioned it, and went on this crazy journey trying to get to the bottom of it all, until I recognized, well, who's the one that wanted to get to the bottom of it all? I was. Who am I? And then got back to recognizing dream only. And a very powerful spiritual discipline for that, I found helpful for my Western identified mind, was A Course in Miracles. But it's a very heavy and complex system of thought, and requires years of study to make complete sense of what that's talking about. But that's also an option as well, one extreme to the other, depending on where you are on your journey home, so to speak. So hopefully you found that informative and helpful. The best thing of why I'd call it a shortcut is because when we're down here, we're often told to do so many things on our spiritual development, such as yoga poses, meditation techniques, chanting, reading scriptures, all of these things which are really helpful, but they always are predicated on somebody actually doing it. So this I found really helpful is because it kind of starts at the very end and it deals with the I thought that thinks it needs spiritual development, the I thought that thinks it's needing to do all these yoga poses and needing to do all these meditation techniques to essentially undo itself, where really all we have to see is its essential illusionary nature from the get-go, and once that is directly realized, then we can just hold ourselves in the dreaming state. We can let Maya just continue on her dream, knowing that it's insubstantial, and in time we will get experiences that what is beyond the last veil, and therefore once we have them, we're more willing to let go of Maya's illusion, because more and more of the denial blocks that normally happen when we start the journey are brought up to awareness, and seeing just how cruel Maya's dream is for everybody who has to participate in it or thinks they have to participate in it, simply because they've been so deluded by all the complexities and intricacies of her illusion. So yeah, if you have any questions about this process, then feel free to drop them below this video, or otherwise check out those different resources that I mentioned. And yeah, all the best on your continual journey, but always remember that at the end of the day, nothing but Setchi and Under is, so everything is a-okay.